Imagine a city that was once the crown of the ancient world, Babylon. Behind its towering walls lay temples to the gods, canals that shimmered like rivers of silver, and palaces filled with treasures beyond imagination. To the Babylonians, their city was eternal, blessed by Marduk, their supreme deity, and destined to rule forever. But destiny has a way of surprising even the most powerful. In the autumn of 539 BC, an army appeared on the horizon. It was not the first army Babylon had seen, but this one was different. At its head stood Cyrus the Great, a king from the east, whose empire stretched farther with each passing year. Babylon's rulers thought their city was impenetrable. They were wrong. This is the story of how Babylon fell. A story not of fire and ruin, but of strategy, politics, and a new vision of empire. By the mid-6th century BC, Babylon was one of the greatest cities on earth. Its walls, according to ancient writers, rose more than 40 meters high and were so wide that chariots could race atop them. Inside those walls lived scholars, priests, merchants, and craftsmen who made Babylon a center of learning and culture. It was here that astronomy and mathematics flourished, and here that kings inscribed their victories on monumental steles. The city was ruled by Nabonidus, the last king of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. He was an unusual monarch. Instead of devoting himself to Marduk, the chief Babylonian god, Nabonidus favored the moon god Sin. He even spent years away from Babylon, living in the desert city of Tamar, leaving much of the administration in the hands of his son, Belshazzar. To the priests of Marduk, this was not just a matter of theology, it was political betrayal. Religious discontent began to spread. Many Babylonians felt that their king had abandoned the traditions that had bound the city together for centuries. When Cyrus advanced from the east, he did not just bring soldiers, he brought an opportunity. To many inside Babylon, the Persian king looked less like a conqueror and more like a savior who might restore balance to their world. Meanwhile, beyond Babylon's horizon, a new power was rising. In the lands of Persia, Cyrus had forged an empire out of tribes and kingdoms, uniting Medes, Persians, and others under his leadership. When Nabonidus seemed distant and disconnected, Cyrus appeared dynamic, ambitious, and unstoppable. The stage was set for a clash that would echo through history, the proud city of Babylon against the brilliant strategist from Persia. The rise of Cyrus the Great. Cyrus was not born a conqueror. Around 600 BC, he came into the world as the son of Cambyses III, a Persian king of a modest realm under the shadow of the Medes. At that time, Persia was considered a land of hardy tribes, not an empire. Few could have imagined that this child would one day rule from the Aegean Sea to the mountains of India. By 550 BC, Cyrus had already changed the map of the Near East. He rebelled against his overlords, the Median Empire, and defeated their king Astyages. Instead of destroying the Medes, Cyrus united them with the Persians, creating a dual kingdom that combined their strengths. This pattern, conquest followed by integration, would become his hallmark. Next, he turned west, facing the powerful kingdom of Lydia under King Croesus, famous for his wealth. Through brilliant strategy and relentless campaigning, Cyrus defeated Croesus around 546 BC. The victory gave Persia control over Asia Minor, opening the door to Greek cities on the coast. To the north and east, Cyrus expanded further, securing alliances and victories that brought vast territories under Persian rule. With each campaign, his reputation grew, not only as a warrior, but as a leader who knew how to win loyalty. Cyrus's empire was unlike the brutal powers that had come before. Assyrians and Babylonians often ruled through terror, using mass deportations and harsh punishments to enforce obedience. Cyrus chose another path. He respected local traditions, allowed conquered peoples to keep their gods and customs, and integrated diverse cultures into a single imperial system. This was not kindness alone, it was strategy. By showing tolerance, Cyrus reduced resistance and made his empire stronger. Cities opened their gates rather than endure destruction. Priests and nobles often welcomed him as a liberator. By the late 540s BC, Cyrus's empire stretched across Iran, Anatolia, and Central Asia. One great prize remained: Babylon, the jewel of Mesopotamia, rich in culture and prestige, and still the symbol of ancient power. In Babylon, Nabonidus continued to alienate his people with his religious policies and absence from the city. Many priests of Marduk and segments of the Babylonian elite quietly looked east, hoping Cyrus would intervene. Cyrus recognized the opportunity. For him, Babylon was not just another conquest. It was the gateway to complete legitimacy. If he could take the city, he would not only add vast wealth to his empire, but also inherit the prestige of ruling Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. So in the year 539 BC, Cyrus marched west. His armies, disciplined and battle-tested, advanced toward the heart of Babylonia. The final confrontation between Persia and Babylon was about to begin. In the autumn of 539 BC, Cyrus the Great set his sights firmly on Babylon. His armies advanced along the Tigris and Euphrates, facing the Babylonian forces under King Nabonidus. The decisive clash came at the Battle of Opis, north of Babylon. There, Cyrus's troops met the Babylonians in open combat. Ancient sources suggest that the Persian army, disciplined and well-organized, cut through the Babylonian lines with ruthless efficiency. The Babylonians were defeated, survivors scattered, and the road to Babylon lay open. As news of the disaster spread, panic gripped the city. Yet the mighty walls of Babylon still stood. Nabonidus might have attempted a siege, but his people were disillusioned. Many priests and nobles resented his devotion to the moon god Sin over Marduk, Babylon's chief deity. To them, Cyrus was no longer just a conqueror. He was a potential restorer of divine order. The fall of Babylon. What happened next became the stuff of legend. According to the Greek historian Herodotus, the Persians diverted the waters of the Euphrates River, lowering its level and allowing soldiers to march along the riverbed into the city. Other accounts suggest Babylon opened its gates willingly, preferring Cyrus to Nabonidus. Whatever the exact details, one fact is clear. Babylon fell without the catastrophic destruction that usually followed such conquests. The city, its temples, palaces, and people remained largely intact. Nabonidus was captured, and Cyrus entered Babylon as its new ruler. Cyrus's proclamation. Unlike so many conquerors, Cyrus chose not to humiliate the Babylonians. Instead, he presented himself as the chosen of Marduk, the protector of the city. His policies were inscribed on what we now call the Cyrus Cylinder, often described as the world's first charter of human rights. On this clay cylinder, Cyrus declared that he came to Babylon in peace, that he restored temples, and that he allowed displaced peoples to return to their homelands. Among those freed were the Jews who had been exiled in Babylon for decades. For them, Cyrus was remembered not as an enemy, but as a liberator. The legacy of the conquest. The fall of Babylon marked more than the end of Nabonidus's reign. It was the passing of an age. For centuries, Mesopotamia had been dominated by empires that ruled through fear. Cyrus offered something different, a model of empire built on respect for local traditions, pragmatic governance and the integration of diverse peoples. Babylon, once the heart of Mesopotamia, became one jewel in the crown of the Persian Empire, an empire that would stretch across 3 continents and endure for centuries. Closing reflection. On that night in 539 BC, when the gates of Babylon opened to the Persians, the ancient world shifted. The city that had been a symbol of eternal power passed quietly into new hands, not through fire and ruin, but through strategy, politics, and vision. Cyrus the Great walked into Babylon not merely as a conqueror, but as a builder of something larger than himself, an empire of many peoples, many gods, and many voices. His legacy reminds us that true power is not only in the sword, but in the wisdom to govern with justice and foresight. The fall of Babylon was not the end of a story. It was the beginning of another, one that would shape the course of history for millennia to come.